You are now tuned into the 2-Minute Warning, a live stream community conversation pertaining to social and political issues and how we can collectively resolve them. Powered by the Westside Gazette.
Hello and welcome to the 2-Minute Warning. I'm your host, Perry Busby, and the 2-Minute Warning is brought to you by the Westside Gazette newspaper, Broward County, Florida's oldest African-American family-owned newspaper. And joining me tonight is publisher of the Westside Gazette, my good friend, Mr. Bobby Henry, and my good brother, Mr. David Wright. Brothers, how are you doing this evening?
Well, you know, it's been a long time. However, I am still terrific at getting better. Yeah.
And I must say today it's summertime, so I am truly outstanding.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Bobby, as you say, it has been a while since we've been here, and glad to be here and definitely joining you, brothers. We are, as you guys have been sort of ribbing me for the last few months, we are truly coast to coast on this show this evening. So we're bringing the show this evening from Florida as well as California. So we are going to cover a lot of ground, as much as the miles between us. Ain't that right?
Yeah, man, that's something else in itself. Coast to coast, who got the most?
No, surely, you know, there was some rap wars. You know, we're celebrating 50 years of hip hop, but there was an East Coast, West Coast thing. So I guess that puts us right in the midst of a East Coast, West Coast rock.
East Coast, West Coast, baby. It's all good.
A G thing.
Yeah. You know, man, but it's been a while since we've been in each other's company like this, even though it's virtual. It's been a minute. But that has not stopped anything from happening. The 2-Minute Warning is still alive and kicking, you know. And there's a lot going on, man. I am truly elated over some things that has transpired in the life of the NNPA, the Black Press of America, who has been around for over 196 years. Founded in 1827 with the NNPA, which is the National Newspaper Publishers Association, about 87 years old. And so for me and for us, let me see this, for the team, can we see that? The team, and we spell team with 2 M's. Together, each accomplishes much more. It was a successful election. You know, a really celebratory event for not. I would like to say on behalf of my daddy, more so than it was for me. It was for him, and that the election for the chairmanship / president of the NNPA is official. That yours truly.
Can I say it?
Sure, you can.
Yeah. So yours truly, Mr. Bobby R. Henry Sr. was elected chairman of the NNPA, and we are just so grateful and so.
Yeah. Thanks.
I mean, this has been a long time coming, and it's much deserved.
Well, like I said, I certainly appreciate it. But for me, to see my daddy in attendance for this to happen, when he himself ran for office many years ago, it was really heartfelt and a tearjerker. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. Yeah, and my father was just overcome. And so upon his shoulders and those that came before him, we stand and we stand together. So prayerfully asking God for wisdom to lead and champion the cause further of a voice crying out in the wilderness for our people. And I have a tremendous cabinet. Again, before my tenure, the cabinet consisted of 5 women, 5 strong Black women publishers who led this organization for 4 years. and did an outstanding job. And now we come in their path to achieve perhaps a few of the things that they wanted to accomplish, but time ran out. So Dr. Tony Draper from Baltimore, she is the first vice. Jackie Hampton from the Mississippi Link, Mississippi, is the second vice. Fran Farrer from North Carolina is the secretary. And another, Pham Ewan, Cheryl Smith, is the treasurer. So the organization is in great hands, and we're here to move the organization forward. So we have our work cut out for us, but as our slogan was and is throughout the campaign, the success, to our success, the key is team. Together, each accomplishes much more. And to those here locally who supported us in this endeavor, I want to say thank you. Truly, had it not been for your support, this never would have happened, nor would my family be able to see it. So we are forever indebted to this community, to those that supported us, and to the publishers who voted for us. We say thank you. And to those who didn't, we are still indebted to you, because you have a vision, and your vision needs to be seen. So prayerfully, we'll be able to incorporate that vision, or those visions, into our vision, and achieving that which we are supposed to have. So I say thank you.
And as you say that, Bobby, we stop and honor those giants that we're standing on the shoulders of. And to Mr. Levi Henry Sr., the visionary who saw all of this and made it happen, we can only just salute you, dear sir.
Yeah.
And again, I felt from viewing the conference online, the streaming, I felt the adoration toward him at that event.
Yeah, man, it was truly remarkable. It was so much so that President Joe Biden lent his voice to the accomplishments of the Black press and his support. That was good. Then we had the brother Keith Ellison from Minnesota, who prosecuted Derek Chauvin and that misguided group of misfits from Minnesota. And then we had the young brother, Justin Jones. Justin Pearson couldn't make it. He had another engagement, a very important engagement, so he couldn't make it. But I tell you, man, we have a lot to be proud of as Black America. I'm not being a racist or a separatist. I'm only being a realist at this point here. We have a lot to be proud of, and a lot to give back to this world, and it's up to us. You know, we've only just begun. But I tell you, the publishers from across the country, the Black publishers from across the country, are lockstep in unison with where we're trying to go. And we all know that we cannot go anywhere without you, our supporters, and our readers, and those who we would ask to brand our markets, our platforms, and so we can, as you would say, we can do the doggone thing.
We can do that, and we can tell the story. You know, Brother Ellison gave us a history lesson on the NNPA. He gave us a history lesson at the conference on what the Black press has done since its conception and how it's had to tell our story. And it's so important even still today. So again,
thank you, my brother.
Do the day.
Thank you. You know, but again, we're here. And Busby, Perry Busby, you know, you've been a soldier without a sword and fighting in this battle. And so the struggle continues. A lutte continue. The struggle continues. Yeah. And it takes all of us. So all of you who are listening, and those who will listen later on, and visualize to lay your eyes on this program, you'll begin to see the importance of what it means for us to tell our own stories, to write the narratives, to bring to fruition that which was behind us, to bring that up front so you can see it. You can hear about what Frederick Douglass said on his 5th of July speech to New York, and what Ida B. Wells did with lynching, and Marcus Garvey, and James Rushram, and Samuel Cornish, and Carlton Goodland, Garth Reeds, Dr. Calvin Rolock, and so many others whose shoulders we truly stand upon, and we have to carry that torch, that mantle, and be careful in how we pass it. But what's more important is how they receive it.
Absolutely. And there's one other thing I do want to add about this convention. I saw the presence of our young people.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And that impressed me even more, that are really stepping up and taking that mantle. And really, I feel we're in good hands, because from their expression, their interpretation of what they've seen, what they've experienced, and what they know and what they're pursuing, we're truly in good hands.
You know, and I don't want to dominate tonight's program, but David, you're absolutely right. And Perry, you guys have told me on a number of occasions that we have to let our young people step up and take ownership, and we're mindful that yes, they must do that, but they too have to understand exactly what they're getting into. You don't come on the bus driving, but thank God these young folk have had driver's education when it comes to the NNPA. There's a group of young people, I'm telling you, out of this world, from the Houston Forward Times. They have a program that they're doing in the school system. It's called Reading Rappers. Now we can talk about that later. But there are young people across this board. So where's Miss Stewart? Miss Stewart's paper is from Milwaukee. I think it's correct, Milwaukee. She had a group of fellows that actually wrote a strategic plan for the Black press to continue. Now, these are young folk thinking ahead. Yeah, they understand the digital aspect, but they also, I dig this, they also respect the history of the printed version of our voice. And in one of our campaign pieces, we said that the newspaper, the printed copy, the printed version of our voice is a motherboard for technology to be plugged into to take us ahead to where we need to be. So the Black press and all of its platforms are in good hands. And we're not talking about sellouts. Now, I want to be clear about that. Right now, I'm speaking for Bobby Henry, publisher of the West Side Gazette. I am not speaking for chairman of the NNPA. Understand me. I'm speaking for the West Side Gazette. What was I saying, man?
Sellouts.
I was going on, yeah. I was on the road. These are not sellouts. Perry, you laughing, but you can come in here too. These are young people who are unapologetically Black, who accept that responsibility, not as a color, but as a significant order. Oh, boy, I'm going to start preaching now. Let me get right here. But as an order, they got purpose. You know, they got purpose, but of an order of how things should be. Not discounting anyone, but collectively moving forward based upon the narrative that we are writing, that we know of.
They've been called.
They've been called. They've been called. So yeah. I don't want to.
Well, I just want to say congratulations, first of all, on being not just elected, but having the courage to stand up to take a leadership role at this time. And forgive me, I got windows open, so okay. You're gonna hear some cars along the way. Yeah. But Bobby, I thank you for that, because one of the key questions I had in this is, at this time now, I mean, we've got a lot going on in terms of the media and the type of news and the lack of pertinent news that they're providing us. I mean, they're giving us more entertainment and more information instead of giving us good journalistic news, as well as we're seeing now that the Supreme Court has made its decision on affirmative action. I'm sure a lot of these media companies will now begin to take a look at African American journalists. We already seen some of that with ESPN. Uh, do you see this sort of as a resurgent or a what kind of moment do you see this for NNPA? I mean, because all of the signs show that the black press is needed, uh, but this time also shows that there are a lot of obstacles
Okay.
that we are faced with, and
Good
those obstacles weren't different than the obstacles that started with the with the Freedom's Journal.
Okay.
So
Right.
now that we're here, what does this time say for us?
Okay. Now remember, again, I'm going to speak as the publisher of the West Side Gazette. Before I begin to speak as the chairman of the NNPA,
Right.
since we started off with the concept of team, before I speak, I will make sure that the team, we've had have had a chance to have a conversation and have come up with a statement, if you will. So I'm speaking now on behalf of the West Side Gazette, and perhaps on the platform that I spoke from to achieve the chairmanship, but I'm speaking as the publisher now. Perry, there's nothing new under the sun. If we were to go back to 1955 with Brown versus the Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas, we would realize and understand then the educational system has been under attack. Nothing has moved forward as they said with all deliberate speed. There have been a lot of hiccups, a lot of planned hurdles and obstacles put in the way. So we have yet to achieve the full scope and understanding or the way to education. And now when you have a Supreme Court handpicked to do just what they're doing, to dismantle everything they could as it relates to any form of equality in any circle, that they're dismantling that now. So the question you ask me, the black press is needed now more than ever. And I'm saying that from the principle of what was printed on the front page of the Freedom Journal in 1827, when it said, we must plead our own cause. For far too long, others have spoken for us. We're not having that. We're not having that. So, and I hope I answered your question as best I could. And I'm pretty sure I left a lot out, but I tried to get to the nuts and bolts of it. We are needed, but in order for us to be of relevance, our readerships, our whatever format that we're using on our podcasts, on our digital aspect, on our newspapers, wherever the voice of Black America is heard, read, or interpreted, the same message must be presented. And that is, we're here to preach and tell our own cause and our own story. And that's the truth for the world to see.
So what I'm hearing is we're no longer lynched from learning how to read. But now there's a psychological lynching on our educational aspirations to be leaders, to be power brokers in this society.
For such a time as this, I told you there's nothing new under the sun. For such a time as this, we have to speak truth to power. That is a must. And it has to be from the standpoint of knowing we can't haphazardly, willy-nilly go off into a tirade of how do I want to say this? Just all fluff and no stuff, not validated historically documented. You know, we have to speak from that standpoint. We have to go back again to David Walker's appeal. We have to go back to Frederick Douglass. We have to go back to the Willie Lynch instance, or Fannie Lou Hamer, Fred Shuttleworth, all those who came before us and the stories that they told, you know, and the truth about it. That's where we have to come from when we're talking about educating our own from the truth as we know it, as it has been recorded, and as some people are trying to snuff it out. Your governor in particular, not only him here in the state of Florida, what about Texas, Perry, where you come from? We can jump over there. The states you passed through, Arizona. You know, there are attempts all over this country to just whitewash us and take us back to the 40s and to the 30s. And before we move a little further, I want to say this to the young people of the West Side Gazette who showed out and who showed up and showed out too at the conference. You know, so we were well represented, and we is all of us, a family, all of us. So, man, don't get me started. Yes, you do. Get me started.
Well, I mean, you talked about governors, but let's not forget that this decision came down from the Supreme Court.
Handpicked a bunch of. If they could put a hood on there, have a black hood on. You know, they got a robe on, but they would have had a hood on. Again, Bobby Henry.
You know, and much to our dismay, while Clarence Thomas, I won't say he disappointed us. Clarence Thomas showed us who he was. Even in this moment, we can take umbrage and really be appreciative of the scholarship and the insight of a Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson in this moment, because she really has elevated the voice and has really picked up the mantle where Thurgood Marshall left it and has elevated it, and in that we can take some solace and really begin to take the inspiration to begin to speak up forthrightly in some of these places. It doesn't just take a Supreme Court justice. We can all speak forthrightly to our history.
And Perry, you know, I don't know if our production and technical person and director, if we have a copy of Supreme Court Justice Jackson, if we have a copy of her speech, I don't know, but I know it was one thing in particular. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say we can just direct them to the West Side Gazette.
Okay.
This week's edition has that in it, as well as they can view that online. Mm-hmm. So if we can just put up the link, they can actually go to the website.
That's true. That is true. That is true.
Yeah, but outstanding, as you said, Brother Perry, she is standing up and taking the mantle, and so proud to have a South Floridian on that Supreme Court justice, and hopefully at some point she'll be able to continue to make us proud and stand in ways that is yet to be seen.
Brother David, you got some stuff written down there on your pad. What kind of ammunition you holding over there?
I'm kind of all over the place, man. We haven't been here for so long, and it's just so much that's going on. But I just want to start with July. This month, Stevie Wonder did an LP called "Hotter Than July." Well, that speaks for itself right about now.
I'm serious.
The record temperatures that we've been having here.
Yeah.
But in actuality, what I'm leaning into is July is National Mental Health Awareness and Awareness Month, and we do want to maybe later on in the month come back and share some important information that we just want our viewers to understand and know and be abreast of. We'll probably bring some experts on that can speak to us in that area. Hotter than July. You know, we were kind of going back and forth on Tuesday on that day, sharing some things about July and how we resorted back to Frederick Douglass and some things that he had written. But I was out doing some shopping, and I asked the brother, I said, "Well, y'all good? Y'all getting ready for the 4th?" And he said, "No, man, we celebrate Juneteenth. We came up before."
15 days after.
Yeah, but 15 days after was the 4th. But brother was saying, "No, man, we had to shift our priorities." And I really received that. I told him, "Listen, I'm going to take that back to the wife, and we're going to have a honest dialogue about that."
Perry?
No, but that does raise a good question. I mean, now as we talk about Juneteenth and July 4th, and all of us, I mean, come from a tradition of having celebrated it in some ways, some more than others. But what does that say? I mean, moving forward in such a divisive time as we're in, how do we coalesce this celebration, however you want to put it? Is this Independence Day, or what does this day mean? I'm back to Frederick Douglass. What does this mean to African American descendants of slaves now? I know what it meant to Frederick Douglass 77 years from now, because it was much fresh. But here we are, some 260 odd, 70 odd years from it. What does that mean for these descendants of slaves? What does
Perry? I watched the celebration from New York with LL Cool J and some other entertainers, black, white, country, urban, inner city, and I said to myself, man, if this country would only live up to its creed, this would be a beautiful place. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I saw the picture of the Statue of Liberty. And then I was reminded of a wall down on our borders. So in between, a symbol that's beckoning us to come. Bring me your tired, your weary, your huddled masses. And on the ass end of that, you got a wall saying, no, you can't come. So there's a hell of a dichotomy, an oxymoron, if you will, that we sit smack dab in the middle. So it's up to us. It's up to us, the people, those of us who believe and still have hope and still are willing to stand up, to make that difference, But you're so right. What to the slave is the 4th of July? And he said, besides the barbaricness of this country and the savagery and all of its bad doing, you can take America and lay it beside any other country, and America reigns superior.
So, and I always look at it from a economic standpoint. When are we gonna get our piece of the pie? I mean, I watched all them fireworks go up, and we don't manufacture
not one. You said you wrote a thing about that.
So I mean, where's some equity involved with our labor, our what we toil, and how we are completely strategically disenfranchised out of the monetary profits of this nation? I mean, it's less than 1% of African Americans are even in the manufacturing business, and that's not by accident. I mean, not in my opinion. I can go on and on, Perry, but I think you understand where we're coming from with this, and that's how we bring it full forward to present day Independence Day.
Mm-hmm. Perry, you've traveling now. You're going from coast to coast. What are you seeing? What hope or despair are you being presented with?
Well, I mean that's interesting because for the last couple of weeks we've been in Arizona, and Arizona has been rich in tradition and been learning a lot because it has uh, a large Hispanic population, but I've learned recently about the influence of blacks into the culture, and there is a part of Tucson um, um, that I'm still uh, grasping, where blacks and Hispanics were very worked hand in hand in the development of those communities within that. I mean, and if you've ever been in Arizona, I mean, you're not gonna see any grass. It's hard to see something green in Arizona. It's just desert. Uh, but to look at the handiwork and the craftsmanship of the architecture there, and how blacks who from South America who came up through America along with Hispanics and helped build this community in Arizona. It's been breathtaking for me, and getting to know the people, and I'm saying that in light of Arizona, where you've got a crazy person like Carrie Lake, uh, who is probably one step from running as Trump's running mate. But yet, when you look at the core and the vibrancy of what keeps the city running, and even that state running, it is like in all places, black and brown hands who have been the uh, continuous source of vibrancy and moving the city forward. But again, like always, it's done at the expense of the economics. And so now you're beginning, and I don't know. I mean, we're in this new phase now where where labors are really starting to have a voice. We've gone from what quiet quitting to now they're calling loud quitting. Uh, so I think in some ways we have to reevaluate our value and how we extrapolate our value into America. I mean, uh, we talk about the Black Wall Streets, and there were many. And so, with us having many black millionaires, billionaires, thousandaires, uh, where's our one Black Wall Street now? And we have to ask ourselves. I mean, is that us? Is that the system? But where are we in this new phase? And I think those are some of the questions our young people are asking in terms of their entrepreneurship. How do we better provide business to ourselves?
Good
In this
question.
new age.
That's a great question.
So obviously it starts with the mindset, Perry. I mean, there are things we walk by every day. We see dilapidated buildings in our communities. We see vacant properties. And what is our vision for what could be there? And a lot of times we've been, I'll just say, oppressed mentally, generationally, to the point that we sometimes felt like that was just not a possibility. Even though now today's times are changing and there are great opportunities afforded to all, um, who's planting the seeds? How can we continue to plant the seeds of being visionaries and developers within our own communities? Oftentimes, since the old Buffy generation, I would call it, the late 80s and 90s, we all wanted to move out to the suburbs and just kind of leave the inner cities. And that mindset, I don't know how much it's shifted for us to really see where true developmental opportunities are and how we can come together and create.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple of comments that came across the screen. Dan Miller says, first of all, good evening, everybody who has chose to make comments. And Dan says, progressive blacks get no respect. Voting dim, hashtag black reparations. That in itself is a concept and something that young folk need to perhaps really dive into that and have that conversation. And then Mr. Doodoo Brown says, I think we need to start with our local elected officials and go from there. And this again is an opportunity for our young people to get involved. Nothing is going to change if we're constantly doing the same thing. What's the old adage? If you do the same thing, expect something different, and that's insanity. Yeah. All of
doing
those
the same thing over and over
again. All those pose great questions, and it's going to take. Well, it's taking conversation of which we are engaging in now, but it has to go outside. It has to spread beyond just a conversation. I had a talk with my granddaughter today, and I was asking her, we have to pay attention to our children and our young folk. They are extremely talented. Now, our granddaughter, when she's on stage performing, she's a different person. I mean, everything that's inside of her comes out. So I was having a conversation. Well, if you're doing that, what can you do for the family business? How can you use those talents? So anyway, make a long story short, talking to her to allow her to understand that what she has and when she brings it out and what she feels like when she's doing it, she still can do that in our business. There are ways to allow our young folk to get involved, and we just have to let them do it. Maybe I rambled just then because I was so impressed with my granddaughter.
No, but Bobby, I think you make a great point though. I was listening to a blogger or something the other day, podcaster, and the young man raised the question, and made me think. When we were growing up in the 60s, the 70s, and the things that we were doing as young people really looked strange to our parents. They thought we were crazy. Are we now repeating that? I mean, we've been in it, some of us have been in this struggle since the 60s and the 70s. And so now that you have young people who are talking a different kind of language, living in a different type of ecosystem, saying we need to do this way, it sort of looks juvenile to us. And we must, and when we say juvenile, I think we need to take a step back and put ourselves back in the 60s, because our parents really looked at the things that we were doing as very juvenile and very undisciplined. Yeah. So what can we learn from that we can now take forward? Because I think some of those same struggles have permeated along these decades. And those are some of the things that are holding us back. Just internally.
They say history has a way of repeating itself. And are we becoming our parents, right? Mm-hmm. And from that aspect, yes. Case in point, my youngest daughter gave me an idea at the age of 4 of creating a little type desk into a computer, saying that when you lift the desk up, that could be the screen and you could put the keyboard in there. This is back in the mid-90s, okay? So, and I thought about it. It struck me to this point that I remembered it, but I didn't move on it. so to speak. And there's something biblically that speaks about us being educated from the mouths of babes, right? So, absolutely, I don't want to misquote that, but Perry, you might be able to help us out there. But absolutely, we must take heed to being open to hearing, seeing what our young people have to say.
Not only that, there was a young man at the conference. He and his wife, and I might pronounce their names incorrect, but it's User, and I'm probably mispronouncing it. 94 years old. This brother is a mathematician. He drew a building, in his words, where you can come and discuss the internet. This man is 94 years old. This building he drew was back, I want to say, either early 70s or late 60s, and he, in his mind, was producing that concept. And now he presented another drawing. The building has not been built yet, but it has 10 sides to it with some chambers that go out. Anyway, that's a whole, the genius of the young, the old, and in between. We just have to come together. I want to jump off to something. We talked about young people and mental health, and this month being that. The gun violence situation in London, was it London? France. But I want to say this. I was talking to a Uber driver. Is it Uber or Uber? Okay, that word. And he from Chicago. And so he was sharing with me when he would have conversations with some of the young boys around there. And he was asking them, man, with all this violence and killing, where y'all getting the guns from? And the young brother told him, from the alleys. They find boxes of guns in the alleys. Now, who'd have thought, or who has the wherewithal to put boxes of guns in the inner city alleys? So we do have an issue with gun violence, and we do have Mental Health Month. I believe that because of the readily accessibility to these guns and the mental health issues that we're dealing with, it has created one of the deadliest products of a mental health issue, and that's death. So we think one way, but we're not thinking like what the young man told the Uber driver. These guns are in boxes in the alleys. Where the hell that come from?
Yeah, they're obviously being supplied in some form of fashion to create some self-destruction. We look at the situation in Philadelphia. Brother walking around in a bulletproof vest on occasion. This wasn't new for him.
It wasn't even Halloween.
But on this occasion, I guess it was a tipping point, and something set him off.
But can we just ask, how is it that civilians can now get tactical bulletproof vests? Those are tactical equipment. That's which means that it has a specific purpose. So and so we got capitalism, consumerism. I mean, it's becoming a vicious circle here. I mean that it's sort of like at any off ramp, you can get whatever. Pick your poison.
It's there. It is readily available. It's there.
So maybe we need to do a show on this whole paramilitary environment, because there's a lot of news out there. I'm sure that would shock so many of our viewers. if they're not on it already. I think they're so astute that they already know about this, but you can basically get anything now in America, whether it be online or, like you said, in the alley or Army Navy stores. I mean, these are places that this kind of stuff exists. And, this is nothing new under the sun right now.
Right.
We've seen this type of militarism 10 years ago. We saw ammunition being sold at record numbers that had never been seen before. Ammunition. What does that tell you?
We can go back a little further than that. There was a study done, was it Detroit, where the police department, either Detroit or Chicago, where the police department went out and brought rifles that could shoot through concrete, and they were doing it because of black people. The police department was in fear of black people. So, but I want to say this, and I want to digress for a moment, and I was not discounting life in any form or fashion when I made that Halloween statement. My heart bleeds for the families who lost loved ones. And so when I said that, I was saying, I should have said, we should have paid attention. Here it is in the midsummer, and people walking around in tactical gear, and we don't report it, we don't approach it, we don't do anything, but we let it happen. So I apologize if I might have seemed disheartened or without feeling. That's not so. Yeah.
But there was another comment that Mr. Miller made, and I do want to that hashtag that he left us with.
Black reparations.
Black reparations. We got a sister over in California. Y'all know this sister, Camilla V. Moore?
Camilla Moore?
Camilla Moore, yeah. She's a reparation task force member in the state of California. They just completed their study, and California is on the precipice of having some type of legislation done over there to afford reparation. Should that always be a part of the conversation?
Perry, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I truly believe there should be an ample discussion on reparations and the parameters of reparations. There's no doubt that African Americans, we go back to slavery, but you can look at such issues as the GI Bill and the amount of help that it and the amount of support that it provided to develop the white middle class. Pretty much at the disposal of black soldiers. Some black soldiers did take advantage of it and did go to college, only to find out there was another hurdle at the end of college, and again, so we keep saying go back to slavery, but we can go back 60 years. Or even if you want to go back to Roosevelt's New Deal. Mm-hmm. How far back do you want to go with this reparations? There is still a payment, and there's still you look at the Viet Cong, and hopefully we're going to have Dr. Kathleen Ballou here who talks about white supremacy, and you look at every ethnic group that America has helped in the last 50 years, not just the Vietnamese, but yet there has not been $1 allocated to not one African descendant group. Forget African Americans, you won't see anything going toward any other ethnic groups to come here, Somalia or any other ethnic group that has been brought here. America has not put forth any sort of fiduciary responsibility to see their uplift.
Yeah,
So
the brother
yes, that
Wesley.
is.
I'm sorry. Okay, brother Wesley
Go ahead.
Boyd, put his comment up there. Brother Boyd is talking about the Peace newspaper out in California, Cali, and the sister name is Gloria Zaharina. Uh, um, Wesley, comment further on who this sister is, would you? Uh, but I think she did something on reparations herself. I'm not sure, but I think she did. Um, okay, there was something else too, David, that you had in your notes for us to at least.
Yeah, so we recently had this rolling out tour that came here through 15 cities in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Powerful event. We're waiting now for some feedback as to some of the results, the debriefing on that. But I had a chance to experience the event here in South Florida and speak with some of the leaders there. And I got to admit, I was truly impressed. Again, seeing young people engaged and actively talking about voter registration and what our rights are and being active in the whole premise of woke doesn't die in Florida, woke lives in Florida. Hearing one of the articles in the newspaper talking about some of our old blues singers and talking about where this wokeness, some of this wokeness was birthed from on how you had to stay alert just to survive in America as African Americans. So any other insight you want to share?
Yeah, there, as you alluded to, there is a debriefing coming up concerning the 15 city tour, Juneteenth rolling protest tour. Each city had its celebration village, and had an opportunity to showcase that community's leaders, organizations, love for their community, and just voter registration, voter education, the dissemination of banned books, just the whole awareness aspect to what we need to be about. We should not let that 15 city tour be the last time that the communities come together to act as a community. Perry, you mentioned earlier of our Wall Streets, our Black Wall Streets, and reparations. Well, here it is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. After all those years, have yet to receive any form of reparations, if you will. It might have been a renewed, redeveloped store here or something there, but not to the magnitude of what was burned down. So when we ask for reparation, affirmative action, or anything that tries to make the playing level equal, we can expect when we ask for food or a biscuit in one hand, there's a scorpion or a snake in the other being given to us. So we just need to be aware of that. I don't want to ramble.
Yeah.
The brother again, Wesley Boyd says Pace newspaper is black owned. She started it in 1992. David Miller.
Okay.
David said
Dan Miller.
I'm sorry, Dan Miller. Well, Dan was being adamant. Dan said, "Sir." Dan, you got our attention. Dan said, "Sir, at this point, to secure the black vote, we demand black reparations for economic development."
And Bobby, I wanted to jump on that one. Because now I like what Dan is saying, but it speaks to a broader point, and that is what is the black strategy heading into this upcoming election. Got Dan saying this. Part of recent news is Dr. Cornel West announced his candidacy for the presidency, and I know that Dr. West will speak to a number of issues plaguing not just the African American community, but as he says, poor people. And so he started out at, I think, the Poor People's Campaign, but I think I've heard since that he may end up running in the Green Party, but to a larger degree, not just talking about Dr. West, but to Dan and to African Americans as well. What is what is our strategy? Dan says, hey, we're not giving our support to the Democrats without reparation. I don't want to put that in Dan's mouth, but he said at this point, we demand reparations. If not, then what? And where do we go? But I think those are pertinent questions, and Dan puts up a marker that I think that is needed, because otherwise I think we're floating into this next election. And guys, I am really worried. Despite what all that is said, I am really worried.
I think we should be extremely worried, because as they just shut down Biden's proposal to assist those college students that had incurred debt, that's in a clear picture. Now, when we talk about economic reparations or economic development, seeing what the Supreme Court has just done, and understanding, in my opinion, justifiably, the president doesn't have that absolute power that a lot of people think they may have, and so much has to go through the system. However, a reparation and economic development from a political standpoint, to me, means we just have to hold our guns. We have to come to some type of agreement where we're going to stand together on a true cause that's going to benefit the masses. And I don't know if we're there in America yet. I just don't.
Situations and problems and circumstances has a natural way of pushing us along the same path of a branch or a twig that has fallen in a brook. Because of the flow of the stream, it'll take you right down to where it's going, unless you get caught up in a snag or something. Then you create a whole nother problem. But
a log jam?
Yeah, you create a log jam. But as the brothers alluded to, reparations in the Democratic Party, Republican Party, Green Party, Blue Party, there has to be one party, a party of consistency, and a party of doing what's right. And I'm toying with something in my mind. I see we got a time check warning here that just came across. So this tells me that we're almost out of time, and we need to bring up another conversation for another time, and continue on that. I just messed that up, Roy.
Well, one thing I do want to say, and
why you laughing, Perry?
And in closing, let me just ask you this:
Sure.
If you consider yourself owning something,
Mr. Boyd said he's going to send a copy of it at the end of this program.
Yeah, I was able to pull her up, Mr. Boyd, on Facebook. So they do have a Facebook page. But thank you so much. Hopefully we'll be able to spotlight our dear sister in California in future episodes.
Okay.
But when you have ownership of something, as here in America, I believe the mindset of what made America what it is, when they felt like they were able to flat out buy property and they have ownership of that property, and then that property is kind of taken away from them, the mindset is well, then what do I owe that was taken away from? Not to dispel all the ills, the wrongs, the cruelty that took place, but yes, something is still owed, in my opinion. And I just have to share that, because we're gonna hear all kind of stuff when we start talking about these topics and why certain people are standing the way they are in reference to this topic of reparations. And then, as you alluded to, Perry, there were situations post freedom that were unjustly done and continue to this day to be unjustly done, that people should be compensated for that happened. So This conversation has to be continued.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, as we wind down and get ready to say good night, Perry, you got any closing thoughts?
No, I was just laughing because as you was threading that needle, I said, "Oh yeah, he's the chairman. You gonna work good at being a chairman."
Oh, okay.
No, no, but in all seriousness, no, this is. I look forward. In September, will mark our third year
Wow.
doing the 2 minute warning, and who would have thought? And we are approaching pretty soon our 100th show, and so we hope that we'll be able to plan that and celebrate that. But there's just something about time, being in time and allowing God to lead you, God who operates outside of time, uh, to help you in time. And so we're looking forward to this. And I hope that as we approach uh, this next year, uh, that we do it with some somber and sobering thoughts, and really something to elevate um, our audience and ourselves, because I truly believe that we are now in a different time than we were 3 years ago. We are definitely in a different time. And so uh, ask the audience if there's something that you would like for us to discuss. Please give us feedback. We really do these shows not trying to operate within a vacuum, but really trying to give you, our listeners, something that is worth this hour for you to take out with us. And so um, please go to the chairman, because now you can get something done. And so, brothers, I really appreciate this, and I'm so thankful that we had this time to get back together again.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm good.
You done? Okay. Let me say this as it pertains to show in the future, like immediately. I had a conversation with a gentleman today that was talking about Medicare and Medicaid, and how some people are about to lose it and don't know how to get it or how to stay on it, as well as folk who are losing houses, their homes, in this particular in our neighborhood. So I invited him to a show. I didn't say when, but whenever we say collectively that we'll have him on to discuss that, because that's extremely important. And then again, I want to thank everybody that has had any input to us achieving what we are achieving, uh, that has given any input, uh, any kind of thought, positive, negative, or indifferent, whatever it was that you have given us. It has all been soil in the pot that make the flower grow. And as we continue to grow, understanding that somebody plants the seed, somebody adds the water, but God gives the increase. So let us always remember, no matter what it is, no matter where we go, that God would never leave nor forsake us, if we should only remember and give him all the praise that he himself so deserves. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. And please, next Thursday, come back. Pay attention to what we post, and we'll go from there. God bless you all.
Good night.